It was just past sunrise, and the soft golden light spilled across the nursery. Emma quietly tiptoed down the hallway, her coffee still warm in hand, the baby monitor crackling softly in the background. The house was calm, ordinary, peaceful. But as she entered the room, she froze. Max, the family's energetic golden retriever, sat perfectly still at the foot of the crib, eyes fixed, ears alert, tail rigid. Normally playful and easily distracted, Max didn't move as she approached. He let out a low, insistent whine and placed himself between Emma and the crib, blocking her way. Emma frowned, her heart skipping a beat. "Max, what is it?" she whispered, kneeling beside him. The puppy's gaze never wavered, following every slight movement of her baby with an intensity she had never seen before. A tiny shiver ran down her spine as Max gave a small bark, then retreated slightly, only to return closer. He was trying to tell her something, but what? Her mind raced, thinking maybe it was just a new phase, maybe a game, but his insistence was different, almost urgent. Something about the way he watched, the way his ears twitched at sounds Emma couldn't hear, made her stomach tighten. She leaned closer to check on the baby, and Max's head snapped toward the corner of the room. Emma's heart pounded. What could he have sensed that she didn't? The puppy's alert stance didn't waver. But what the dog sensed was far from ordinary. Before we continue, remember to like, share and subscribe for more heart-touching dog stories. And tell me, where are you watching from? The morning began softly, the kind of gentle quiet that makes a home feel safe. A pale ribbon of sunlight crept across the hallway floor as Emma made her way toward the nursery. Her bare feet brushed against the cool wood. Her coffee sent up a warm little swirl of steam, and somewhere behind her, the house settled with the familiar creaks she'd grown used to since the baby was born. She breathed in slowly, letting the calm settle in her chest. It was a peaceful start, ordinary, steady, comforting. Max was already awake. She heard the light tap-tap of his paws before she saw him. The golden retriever pup peeked around the corner, tail wagging in slow, sleepy arcs. His fur caught the sunlight like a soft halo. "Good morning, buddy," she whispered. Max didn't bark. He didn't nudge her hand. He just turned toward the nursery and waited. Emma smiled, thinking he simply wanted to be first to greet the baby. He had been attached to her daughter from the day they brought her home, following the little bundle with a loyalty so pure it sometimes made Emma emotional. She pushed the door open. The nursery was calm and still. Soft white curtains drifted from the early breeze. A faint lavender scent from last night's diffuser lingered in the air. And in the crib, her baby slept quietly, tiny chest rising, falling. Everything looked perfect. But Max stopped, right at the threshold. His tail lowered slightly, his ears angled forward. His body leaned toward the crib, tense but quiet, like he was listening to something Emma couldn't hear. She frowned gently. "Max," she whispered. He didn't move. He didn't even blink. The coffee in her hand trembled just a bit, though she wasn't sure why. Maybe it was just the sleepless nights catching up. Maybe she was imagining the tension in Max's stance. She stepped closer to the crib. Max's paws moved instantly, one step forward, then another, slow, deliberate. He stayed right beside her leg. Emma leaned over, brushing her fingers across the baby's blanket. Warm, soft, normal. The baby stirred a little but didn't wake. Max let out a very small, barely there whine. It was so soft she almost missed it. Her eyes drifted toward him. His body was stiff now, not fearful, not aggressive, just alert. Deeply alert. His nose lifted slightly, scenting the air near the baby. Then he looked up at Emma, eyes wide, almost urging. She crouched down, meeting his gaze. "What is it, boy?" He didn't look away. Not once. His ear twitched toward the crib. Then he glanced back at her. Then again at the crib, as if repeating a message she couldn't yet understand. A gentle shiver crept up her spine. She told herself it was nothing. Maybe Max was just adjusting to being a big brother. Maybe he was nervous. Maybe puppies just did strange things sometimes. Still, she felt something warm and uneasy move through her chest. Emma reached out and ran her hand along Max's back. His fur was warm and soft beneath her palm. But the tension, the quiet intensity, didn't leave his posture. He inhaled again. Slow. Deep. Then he stepped forward, just one small step, and placed himself between Emma and the crib. Her heart skipped. Max, hey, what's going on? His only answer was a low, soft huff of breath. She watched him closely now, noticing every detail. The way his chest barely moved. The way his paws were planted firmly but calmly on the floor. The way his eyes stayed fixed on the baby with such unwavering focus. The sun shifted across the curtains. A gentle breeze brushed the room. But Max didn't look away. Emma felt her pulse start to pick up, slow but steady. Something was wrong. Or at least something was different. The nursery felt colder somehow, though the air hadn't changed. The quiet felt heavier. She stepped closer again and Max followed instantly, matching her pace, never leaving her side. Okay, she whispered, voice softening. You're scaring me a little, buddy. The baby let out a tiny sigh in her sleep. Max's ears twitched sharply. Emma straightened, breathing in slow. Her eyes drifted from Max to the baby, then back to Max. What do you hear? She whispered. Max didn't respond. He simply stood there, steady, watchful, unwavering. Protecting. Waiting. Emma placed her hand gently on the crib rail. A sense of unease tightened in her stomach, subtle but real. She tried to shake it off. But Max's behavior wasn't playful. It wasn't random. It wasn't puppy energy. It was deliberate, focused, instinctive. She knelt beside him again. Max, talk to me, she murmured, her voice catching with a thin strand of worry she hadn't meant to reveal. He looked at her, eyes soft but intense, then slowly turned his head toward the far corner of the nursery. Emma followed his gaze. Nothing was there. No movement. No shadow. No sound. Just a quiet corner filled with morning light. But Max didn't look away. Not even for a second. Emma's breath moved slowly in her chest. Something about the stillness of that moment pressed against her. Max stayed locked on the baby. His posture firm. His instincts fully awake. Emma swallowed lightly. She wasn't sure why. But she suddenly understood one thing. Max wasn't overreacting. He wasn't confused. He wasn't being a silly puppy. He knew something. Something she didn't. And in that soft morning quiet, in that warm sunlit room, a small tremor of fear crept beneath her calm. Because whatever Max sensed, it wasn't ordinary. The next morning arrived quietly, but the calm didn't settle the way it usually did. Emma woke before her alarm. Something inside her felt unsettled, like her mind had been turning over questions all night. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake her husband, and made her way into the hallway. The early light hadn't fully broken yet, just a bluish glow seeping through the blinds. The house felt cool, a little too still. Max was already up. He sat in the same spot outside the nursery door. Same posture. Same alertness. Same stillness that didn't match the softness of a normal morning. His tail didn't wag this time. He just watched her. Quiet. Waiting. Emma exhaled slowly. Hey, buddy, she whispered, kneeling. Max moved closer but didn't nudge her hand like he usually did. His nose brushed the crack under the nursery door, breathing in softly once, twice, before looking back at her with that same focused stare that had unsettled her the day before. Emma reached for the doorknob. Max tensed. A single low sound left him. Not a growl, not a bark. Just a breathy, urgent warning. She froze. Max, what is it? She whispered again. He didn't step back. Didn't move aside. Instead, he pressed his body gently against her leg, as if telling her to slow down. Her heart beat a little faster. Felt ridiculous to be nervous. This was her house. Her baby's room. But something about Max's posture, something about the quiet intensity in him, made the air feel different. She turned the knob. The door swung open. The nursery greeted her with soft colors, morning shadows, and the familiar lavender scent. Everything looked peaceful. The baby slept soundly. one tiny hand tucked under her cheek. But Max didn't relax. He walked in slowly, step by step, head low, ears forward, breathing softly through his nose as if following a trail only he could sense. Emma watched him. Her throat tightened. "Max, talk to me," she murmured. He didn't bark. Didn't whine. He just circled the crib once. Then sat at the same spot he had chosen yesterday. His eyes never left the baby. Emma leaned over the crib. Nothing looked unusual. No drafts. No loose blankets. No strange sounds. Nothing. But Max remained locked in place, listening to something she couldn't hear, sensing something she couldn't name. Emma exhaled shakily. "You're making Mommy nervous," she whispered to the baby, even though the words were meant for herself. She stood still for a moment, thinking, remembering yesterday, wondering if something was wrong with the crib, the air vents, the temperature. Then faintly she felt it. A soft, almost unnoticeable chill on her forearm. She frowned and ran her hand along the side of the crib. Cold. Much colder than the rest of the room. Max's ears twitched sharply. Emma's breath caught. "Okay," she whispered. "That's weird." She checked the window. Closed tight. Curtains still. No breeze. She checked the vent. Warm air. Normal. The cold spot didn't make sense. Max moved closer and sniffed the same area she had touched. He sat back down slowly, stiff posture, steady breathing. She felt a small tremble build in her chest. "Is that what you've been noticing?" she asked him softly. Max didn't blink. He just held his gaze on the crib, unwavering. Emma's mind raced. She didn't believe in anything supernatural. She didn't jump to conclusions. But she believed in instincts, especially dog instincts. And Max had never acted like this, not even once. She lifted her daughter gently, holding her close to her chest. The baby stirred slightly, let out a tiny sigh, and relaxed into Emma's warmth. Max stood immediately. His tail lowered again. His ears stayed angled forward. His nose moved toward the crib, then toward the baby, then back again, as if comparing something, checking something, confirming something. Emma swallowed hard. A soft pause filled the room. A beat of silence. Max stepped forward, slow, careful, and rested his head lightly against Emma's knee, almost like reassurance or warning. Emma hugged her baby tighter. "Okay," she whispered, voice almost trembling. "I'll keep her with me for now." She stepped out of the nursery. Max followed instantly, close, protective, his steps matching hers. Down the hallway, into the living room, across the quiet morning light. He stayed so close she could feel his warmth against her leg. Emma settled onto the couch, rocking the baby gently. Max sat right beside them, not on the rug, not near the door, but pressed against the couch, watching the baby with steady, unbroken attention. Emma stroked his head. "Something's bothering you," she murmured. "I can feel it." Max leaned into her touch, but his eyes never left the baby. Emma breathed slowly. She felt the unease again. A subtle pull in her chest. Not panic, not fear. Just the sense that Max had been trying to get her to notice something she still wasn't seeing. The minutes passed quietly. The baby slept peacefully against her. Max stayed alert. Not moving. Not resting. Not even blinking for long. Emma whispered, "What are you trying to tell me, boy?" Max responded with a soft, quiet exhale, a gentle sound that felt almost like an answer. Emma looked down at her daughter, then at Max, then toward the hallway where the nursery sat in silent stillness. A slow, uneasy thought whispered through her mind. Whatever Max sensed, it was still there. And it wasn't fading. Not at all. Emma tried to shake off the uneasiness. She told herself she was tired. Told herself Max was going through a protective puppy phase. Told herself the cold spot in the nursery was probably just nothing. But even as she whispered those reassurances in her mind, the doubt lingered. The baby slept peacefully in her arms, tiny fingers curled against Emma's shirt. The warmth of her daughter grounded her, softened the tension in her chest. Max didn't relax. He sat against the couch, body angled toward the baby, his breath slow and steady but never drifting into the soft rhythm of rest. His eyes stayed open, focused, watchful. Emma rubbed her forehead with her free hand. "You're scaring me for no reason," she murmured. Max didn't look at her. He didn't react at all. He simply stayed there, solid, quiet, alert. A small ache formed in Emma's stomach. She didn't want to overreact. Didn't want to let her imagination run wild. Didn't want to become a paranoid new mom who panicked over every strange moment. Her husband had always been the calm one. He worked long shifts, slept deeply, and trusted logic more than gut feelings. He didn't see Max's sudden shift the way she did. He didn't stand in that quiet nursery with the cold touch of air brushing across his skin. He didn't feel the strange tension in the puppy's posture. Emma sighed, shifting slightly to ease the weight of her daughter. Max immediately leaned forward, checking the baby's face, sniffing gently near her ear. "It's okay," Emma whispered. "She's fine. I promise." But he didn't move until the baby settled again. Emma watched him for a long moment. The stillness, focus, the subtle tremble in his whiskers as he scented the air. Something in her chest tightened again. But then, almost desperately, she tried to talk herself out of it. "You're being dramatic, Em," she said under her breath. "He's a puppy. Puppies act weird sometimes. Puppies notice things you don't. Puppies get nervous about new routines." She forced a small laugh. "This is normal," she added, even though her voice wavered the slightest bit. The baby slept on, oblivious, peaceful. Max didn't blink. Emma stood slowly and walked toward the kitchen. Max followed, staying close enough that she could feel the warmth of his fur brushing her calf. Each step she took he matched. Perfectly. She tried to smile. "You're my little shadow today," she told him gently. Max didn't wag his tail. Not even once. That unsettled her more than anything else. Max always wagged his tail, even at random dust particles floating in sunlight. But now nothing. Just watchfulness. Just instinct. She placed the baby carefully in her bassinet in the living room, never taking her eyes off Max. His head snapped toward the bassinet the moment the baby settled inside. His muscles tightened. He stepped closer, not touching, not leaning, but close enough that he could watch every tiny breath of the sleeping infant. Emma swallowed. "This is too much," she whispered to herself. She knelt beside Max, placing her hand gently on his chest. "It's okay," she whispered. "You don't have to guard her every second." Max shifted his eyes toward her, soft, warm, loving, but the tension didn't leave his body. He exhaled slowly, as if he wanted her to understand something she kept missing. She felt a prick of guilt. "Maybe I'm the one being dramatic," she said quietly. "Maybe I'm imagining everything you're doing." Her fingers moved through his fur, slow and soothing. Max closed his eyes for a moment, just a moment, leaning into her touch. Then he looked back at the baby. Immediately, instinctively, Emma's heart sank a little. She tried to distract herself with normal routine, washed dishes, folded a blanket, sent her husband a quick text. Everything looked so ordinary, but Max stayed glued to the bassinet. Every sigh from the baby, every twitch, every tiny shift in breathing, Max responded. Ears lifting slightly, nose moving forward, eyes sharpening. Emma watched him. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, so you're being protective. That's all. Nothing scary. Nothing serious." She tried to believe those words, but a small voice inside her whispered something different. If it was nothing, why did Max act like it was everything? She lifted her daughter again, holding her close. Her heartbeat softened at the warmth of the little bundle pressed against her chest. Max stepped closer, calm, gentle, checking her just as carefully as before. Emma whispered, "You can relax, buddy." But Max didn't relax. Not at all. He stayed beside her, pressed against her leg, watching the baby, listening to something she couldn't hear. Emma walked toward the hallway. Max's steps grew sharper. His body tensed. His eyes darted toward the nursery and stayed there. Emma stopped. She felt it. a soft, sinking sensation in her stomach, a realization she didn't want. She whispered, barely audible, "You don't want us going near that room, do you?" Max didn't look at her. He didn't need to. His posture said everything. Emma held her baby tighter. Her breath trembled. Just once. For the first time, she wondered if Max wasn't being dramatic, or clingy, or restless. For the first time, she wondered if he was right. Something in that nursery, something she hadn't understood yet, wasn't right, and she had misread the signs. The third morning came with the sky washed in pale gray. Clouds drifted low, muting the sunlight, softening every corner of the house. Emma moved quietly through the hallway, baby cradled against her chest. She hadn't slept well. Even in her dreams, Max's watchful eyes lingered, steady, alert, unblinking. Her mind kept replaying the cold patch near the crib, kept replaying Max's posture, kept replaying the way he refused to step away. She tried to shake it off, but the unease stayed right beneath her ribs. Max waited for her again, just like the last 2 mornings. He sat in front of the nursery door, not pacing, not whining, just sitting like a guard dog stationed with purpose far beyond his size. The moment Emma appeared, he stood. No tail wag, no playful stretch, just a slow rise to his feet, and a gentle step toward her daughter. Emma felt the tension rise inside her like a quiet tide. "Morning, boy," she whispered. Max didn't react. His eyes moved to the baby, then to the nursery door, then back again. A silent warning, soft but unmistakable. Emma placed a hand on his head. His ears twitched, then angled forward toward the door. "What do you hear?" she whispered. He inhaled once, twice, then took a single step between her and the doorway. Emma froze. Her heart fluttered in her chest. Not panic, just a deep, instinctive concern she couldn't push away anymore. "Max," she murmured, voice thinning, "you don't want me taking her in there, do you?" He didn't move. He didn't even glance at her. His entire focus was locked on the nursery. Emma swallowed. Her throat felt tight. She looked down at her baby, warm, sleepy, peaceful, gently curled against her. Then she looked at Max again. Something in his stillness made her chest ache. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't restless. He wasn't confused. He was certain. He stepped toward the nursery again, nose lifting slightly, scenting the air beneath the door. Emma felt a chill run down her arm, the same kind she'd felt near the crib. Soft, cold, out of place. She shook her head, fighting the rising tension. She didn't want to believe something was wrong, didn't want to fall into fear, didn't want to let her imagination spiral in the quiet morning. But Max's instincts had never been wrong, not once. He'd alerted her to burnt toast before she smelled it. He'd sensed her rising anxiety on postpartum days when she hadn't said a word. He always noticed things before anyone else. And now, he noticed something she still didn't understand. Emma slowly reached for the nursery doorknob. Max stiffened instantly, body firm, paws pressed against the floor, breath caught in a silent warning. Emma's hand froze halfway. A long moment passed. Just breathing. Just quiet. Just tension filling the space between them. She knelt beside Max, lowering herself to his level. "It's okay," she whispered, though her voice held little confidence. "Let me check. I just need to see if the room feels normal." Max's nose pressed into her knee, gentle but insistent. A soft, sad little whine slipped from his throat. Emma's heart cracked just a bit. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. "I'm not trying to scare you. I promise." She hugged her daughter closer. Max pushed himself closer too, as if trying to keep both of them away. Emma let out a shaky breath. "Okay," she murmured. "I won't take her in." Max relaxed only by a small fraction, not fully, just enough to let the air loosen around them. Emma stepped back, holding her daughter securely. She looked into Max's eyes, warm, loyal, deeply expressive. "You're trying to protect her," she said softly, realization brushing her words. "That's all this has ever been." Max blinked once, slow, meaningful, then placed himself directly at her feet, facing the nursery like a soldier on duty. Emma turned away and walked toward the living room. Max followed immediately. Every step, every breath, every shift of her daughter's weight. He never left her side. Emma settled on the couch again, but nothing about her movements felt relaxed. The baby rested safely against her, but her own heartbeat felt heavier. Max sat right beside them again, posture tall, steady, unwavering. Emma gently ran her fingers through his fur. "Talk to me, boy," she whispered. "Tell me what's wrong." Max only leaned closer, resting his head against the couch cushion but keeping his eyes open and alert. Emma exhaled slowly. She needed answers. She needed clarity. She needed to understand why her puppy, her sweet, bright-eyed, gentle Max, was acting like there was something in the house he needed to shield them from. She lifted the baby slightly and whispered, almost to herself, "I'll figure this out. I promise." A soft gust of wind rattled faintly against the window. The light dimmed just a bit as a cloud passed overhead. Max's ears twitched again. He lifted his head. His eyes darted toward the hallway, toward the nursery. Emma's breath caught. He heard something. He sensed something. She held her baby a little tighter, and Max leaned a little closer. The tension didn't fade. It grew quiet, steady, unmistakable. And Emma finally understood something she had tried to deny. Whatever Max was responding to, it wasn't going away. Not yet. The morning began quietly. A soft winter light slipped between the blinds in Ethan's living room. Pale, cool, gentle. The kind of light that doesn't wake a person but nudges them. The house was still. Peaceful. Only the faint hum of the heater filled the space. Murphy lay on the rug near the couch, resting his head on his paws. His ears twitched from time to time. His breathing remained slow, steady, calm. And yet, something inside him was awake. Quiet instinct. A sense that didn't rely on sound or sight. He lifted his head. Listened. Waited. The world outside sounded normal. The distant engine of a passing car. The soft chirp of a lone bird. The steady rhythm of a quiet neighborhood waking up. But Murphy felt something else. A subtle shift in Ethan's heartbeat. He rose to his feet, walked toward the couch, and gently nudged Ethan's arm. Ethan stirred, blinked a few times. He had fallen asleep on the couch again, this time without meaning to. He rubbed his eyes, confused for a moment, then glanced at the clock. "Murph, it's early," he murmured, voice rough with sleep. Murphy nudged him again. A little firmer, a little more urgent. Ethan frowned, sat up slowly. "What is it, buddy?" Murphy stepped back, tail low, not tucked, just lowered in that serious, focused posture he had when something didn't feel right. His body leaned forward slightly. His eyes stayed locked on Ethan. Not playful, not restless. A signal. Ethan exhaled. "Okay, all right. I'm up." He stood and stretched, joints stiff from the bad night's sleep. But Murphy didn't let him drift into his morning routine. The dog stayed close, almost guiding him. Ethan noticed. "You're worried," he whispered. Murphy moved toward the hallway. Paused. Looked back. Ethan felt a strange chill, one that wasn't from the winter air. He followed. Murphy led him to the bathroom. Ethan stopped in the doorway, puzzled. "What?" Murphy sat, stared at him, then at the mirror. Not the kind of stare a dog gives when he wants food or play or affection. This was different. Intent. Focused. Ethan turned on the light. And that's when he saw it. His face looked pale, paler than usual. A thin sheen of sweat on his forehead. His eyes slightly unfocused. He pressed a hand to the sink for balance. He hadn't noticed any of this. Not until Murphy made him look. "Okay, that's strange," Ethan muttered. He took a slow breath. Then another. Something felt off. A tightness in his chest, subtle but present. A faint pressure behind his eyes. A strange lightheadedness. Nothing severe. Nothing dramatic. But not normal. Murphy stepped forward and gently leaned his body against Ethan's leg, grounding him, keeping him steady. Ethan closed his eyes. You sensed it before I did, didn't you? Murphy's only response was a soft, low exhale, the kind he made when he was trying to comfort someone. Not a whine. Not distress. Just presence. A warm reminder. I'm here. Ethan splashed water on his face. The coolness helped, but it didn't fully clear the fog. He sat on the edge of the bathtub, elbows on his knees, breathing slowly. Murphy stayed by his side. Quiet. Patient. Watching every small cue. Breathing rhythm, posture, shaky exhale, the slight slump in Ethan's shoulders. This wasn't the first time Murphy had reacted like this. A memory surfaced. A late shift 2 years earlier when Ethan had ignored a headache. Murphy had sensed something then too. Wouldn't let him leave the house. Ethan ended up discovering his blood pressure had spiked. Murphy had known before anyone else. Before Ethan himself. He looked at the dog now, heart warming through the discomfort. You're doing it again, he whispered. Taking care of me. Murphy lifted a paw, resting it gently against Ethan's shin. A small gesture, but it carried weight. Ethan chuckled softly. All right. Let's sit for a minute. He leaned back against the wall. Murphy settled beside him, pressing his side against Ethan's leg, anchoring him with warmth and steady breathing. The room stayed quiet. A few minutes passed. The dizziness faded a little. Not completely, but enough to think clearly. Ethan rose slowly. Murphy watched every movement. I'm okay, Ethan said softly. Murphy didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't accept the reassurance. He stepped closer and nuzzled Ethan's hand again. All right, Ethan exhaled, nodding. We'll get checked. The moment he said it, Murphy relaxed. Just slightly. The tension in the dog's shoulders eased. His tail lifted a bit, still low, still cautious, but no longer fixed. Ethan noticed immediately. So that's what you wanted. Murphy gave a single soft wag. Ethan grabbed his jacket. Murphy stayed right beside him, guiding him toward the door, glancing up at him with quiet certainty. The dog wasn't frantic. Wasn't panicked. Just sure. As if saying, let's go. Now. Ethan locked the door behind them. The cold morning air brushed his cheeks, clearing his mind a little more. Murphy walked with a steady, purposeful stride. No pulling. No distraction. No hesitation. Partner. A guardian. A silent censor for what Ethan's body had tried to ignore. They reached the truck. Ethan opened the driver's door. Murphy stopped. Didn't jump in. Didn't move. He looked up at Ethan again, waiting for him to sit first, watching to make sure he didn't wobble or sway. Ethan smiled faintly. Okay. I'll be careful. He climbed in slowly. Murphy followed. Settled beside him. Not in the back seat. He stayed close in the front, his head resting near Ethan's arm, eyes still watching him with gentle intensity. Ethan started the engine, and paused for a moment, listening to the quiet hum, feeling the soft presence beside him. He whispered, "Thank you again." Murphy blinked slowly and leaned closer. The signal had been sent. The warning delivered. Now it was Ethan's turn to follow it. And he would. For Murphy. For himself. For the bond that had already saved him more times than he could count. And once more today. The truck moved slowly through the quiet neighborhood. Morning frost still clung to the edges of lawns, sparkling under the pale winter sun. The world looked calm. Still, unaware that Murphy had sounded an alarm only he could sense. Ethan drove carefully, hands steady on the wheel, breathing controlled. But he could feel it again, that faint pressure in his chest. Not sharp, not sudden, just lingering. A quiet heaviness he couldn't explain. He exhaled through his nose. Murphy noticed. The dog lifted his head from where it rested near Ethan's arm. His ears tilted forward. His gaze steady, watching him, monitoring him, the same way he used to track subtle shifts during their old training days. "Still on duty, huh?" Ethan whispered. Murphy shifted closer, placing a gentle paw on Ethan's thigh. Not tense, not anxious, just present. The gesture grounded him. Ethan slowed the truck as they approached a stop sign. He paused longer than usual. The road stretched quiet in both directions, empty except for a mail truck turning a corner several blocks away. He rested his head briefly against the headrest. Murphy leaned forward, pressing the soft weight of his head against Ethan's shoulder. A silent reminder. "Stay with me." Ethan nodded softly. "Yeah, I'm here." He continued driving but kept the speed low. The hospital wasn't far, 10 minutes on a normal day. Today it felt longer. Not in a frightening way, but in a heavy, reflective one. The hum of the engine filled the cab. The soft tap of Murphy's tail against the seat came every few moments, barely audible, but steady enough to keep Ethan anchored. "Do you remember," Ethan said quietly, eyes still on the road, "the morning we brought you home?" Murphy looked up at him. Ethan smiled faintly. "You sat right there. Same seat, same look on your face. Like you were trying to figure out who I was. And whether you could trust me." Murphy blinked slowly. A calm, warm blink. The kind dogs give when they feel safe. Ethan's voice softened. "Funny how that flipped. Now I'm the one trusting you." Another soft tail tap. This time slightly stronger. The road curved, revealing a line of bare winter trees, their branches stretching thin against the pale sky. A light breeze moved through them, scattering a few stubborn leaves across the asphalt. Ethan felt another wave of dizziness. Subtle, but there. He eased his foot off the gas and pulled the truck into an empty parking lot beside a quiet park. The moment the truck stopped, Murphy stood, moving closer, his chest brushing Ethan's arm. "It's okay," Ethan murmured. "Just need a second." Murphy stayed still, watching him. Ethan closed his eyes and inhaled slowly. The cold air seeping through the vents felt grounding. After a few moments, the dizziness passed. He opened his eyes. Murphy still hadn't moved. "You're really not letting this go, are you?" Murphy's nose touched his wrist. A soft, gentle touch. Ethan nodded. "All right, we go slow. We get help." He rested his hand on Murphy's head, fingers sinking into the warm fur. Murphy leaned into the touch, anchoring him with steady confidence. "I'm not scared," Ethan whispered. A pause. "But I'm listening." Murphy lowered his head, resting it gently on Ethan's knee, an instinctive gesture he used during stressful calls. It helped regulate heart rates, helped calm nerves. Ethan had seen him do it for victims, for officers, for strangers. Now he was doing it for him. Ethan rubbed the dog's back. "You're doing good, Murph." After a few minutes, he felt clear enough to continue. The truck eased back onto the road. Murphy didn't lie down this time. He sat upright beside Ethan, posture alert but calm. His tail stayed low, not wagging, not stiff, just thoughtful. A signal that he was in full guardian mode. Ethan glanced at him. "You're reading me like a book." Murphy blinked again, and then very gently pressed his side against Ethan's arm. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't a push. It was support. The kind that says, "I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you. Keep going." As they approached the hospital, Ethan felt another shift, this time emotional, not physical. A mix of vulnerability and relief. He didn't like hospitals. They reminded him of injuries, of teammates in tough conditions, of nights spent waiting on news he didn't want to hear. But today, the building didn't feel threatening. Maybe because he wasn't alone. Murphy watched the entrance as they pulled into the parking lot. His ears lifted slightly. His posture softened but stayed focused. "You know," Ethan whispered, turning off the engine, "you're supposed to be retired." Murphy looked at him with calm certainty. Ethan chuckled under his breath. "Yeah, I know. That doesn't mean you're done." He unbuckled his seatbelt. Murphy didn't move until Ethan opened the door. When Ethan stepped out, Murphy followed instantly, close, steady, protective. He stayed pressed to Ethan's leg as they crossed the lot. His steps matched Ethan's slower pace, each footfall deliberate. Inside the lobby, a nurse behind the reception desk glanced up. Her eyes softened immediately. "Oh, what a handsome boy," she said gently. Ethan nodded, voice tired but steady. "He's the reason I'm here." Murphy looked up at Ethan again. A quiet, warm confirmation. Yes, Ethan whispered. You did good. The nurse motioned him forward. Come on. Let's get you checked. Murphy followed beside him, tail lowering again into that serious guardian posture, sensing the shift in environment, reading Ethan's breathing alert but calm. Ethan felt it too. The truth was coming. Whatever it was. And thanks to Murphy, he was ready to face it. The exam room was small and quiet. Soft light came from an overhead fixture, humming faintly. A monitor blinked slowly in the corner. The walls were a muted cream color. Peaceful, unthreatening. But Ethan felt the weight of the moment pressing against his ribs. Murphy stayed close. Not touching. Not leaning. Just near. Guarding the space around Ethan the way he once guarded doorways, alleys, and nighttime patrol routes. Ethan sat on the padded chair while the nurse clipped a monitor onto his finger. She spoke softly, as if the room itself needed calm. Your pulse is a little fast, she said. But we'll get everything checked. Murphy watched her every movement. Ears tilted. Nostrils flaring softly. Tail still and straight. Not out of fear. Out of purpose. Ethan exhaled. He's been warning me all morning. The nurse offered a gentle smile. Dogs know things we don't. Murphy blinked, slow, steady, like he understood her words. Minutes passed quietly. Ethan felt the ache again. Not a sharp pain. Not dangerous on its own. Just a pressure across his chest and shoulder. A warmth that didn't belong. A reminder that something inside had been whispering long before Murphy barked. He rubbed his chest lightly. Murphy leaned in closer, head brushing against Ethan's knee. Yeah, I know, Ethan whispered. I feel it. The doctor arrived a few minutes later. A calm man with tired but kind eyes. He reviewed the early readings, then motioned toward the bed. Let's run an EKG. Just to be safe. Ethan nodded. Murphy followed as he lay down, positioning himself beside the bed. Close enough for comfort, far enough not to interfere. His tail tucked slightly under, not in fear but in readiness. Like he was bracing with Ethan. Electrodes touched Ethan's skin. Cold. A small shiver rolled through him. Murphy lifted his head. Just a little. Enough to acknowledge the change. The machine beeped softly as the doctor watched the screen. His expression didn't shift much. Just small, thoughtful movements. Focused. Careful. Professional. Ethan watched him. That bad? The doctor shook his head slightly. Not bad. Just something we need to look at closely. Murphy's ears perked. A quiet alert. Not alarm. Just awareness. The doctor printed the results and stepped out to compare them with earlier readings. Ethan stayed still, listening to the soft hum of the machine and the faint echo of footsteps in the hallway. Murphy rested his chin on the edge of the bed. Ethan reached down, brushing his fingers through the familiar fur. You've been trying to tell me for days, haven't you? Murphy didn't move. Didn't blink. Just breathed with him. Together. A few minutes later, the doctor returned and pulled up a chair. Well, he said gently, the good news is you're not having a heart attack. Ethan let out a slow, quiet breath. Murphy's tail thumped once against the floor. The doctor continued. But you are showing signs of early cardiac strain. Nothing life-threatening. Nothing urgent. But it's real. And it needs to be addressed. Ethan nodded slowly. Murphy eased closer until his chest pressed against the bed frame. Steady, calm, present. The doctor looked at the dog and smiled softly. He knew before you did. Yeah, Ethan whispered. He always does. The doctor showed him the chart. This kind of strain builds over time. Stress. Long shifts. Not enough sleep. Sometimes the symptoms feel small, like pressure. Fatigue. Light dizziness. Ethan swallowed. That's exactly it. It's treatable, the doctor added quickly. But ignoring it could lead to something more serious. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. Murphy lifted his head fully now, bringing his nose close to Ethan's hand, anchoring him. You brought me here, Ethan breathed. You really brought me here. He opened his eyes again, and everything felt clearer. Not frightening, not overwhelming, just honest. Murphy placed a paw gently on the side of the bed. A silent statement. I saw it. I knew. I needed you safe. The doctor handed Ethan a small pamphlet, simple lifestyle changes, instructions for monitoring symptoms, and referrals for follow-up testing. When dogs pick up on something, the doctor said softly, we should listen. Their sense of smell, their instincts. They can detect chemical changes in the body long before we can. Ethan let the words settle. They're not just pets, he whispered. The doctor nodded. No, they're partners. Murphy lowered his head again, resting it near Ethan's hand. Ethan brushed his fur with slow, grateful strokes. You saved me today, he murmured. Murphy closed his eyes, leaning into the touch. A soft pause filled the room. Warm, quiet, healing. The doctor stood. We'll start with a few simple tests today, then get you on a management plan. You're not in danger right now. You're here early. That's a good thing. Ethan nodded, relief softening every muscle in his body. Murphy exhaled once deeply, like a weight had lifted off him too. Ethan looked down at him. You knew. You really knew. Murphy's tail tapped once more. Quiet, yes. A nurse stepped in with paperwork. You're very lucky, she said, smiling at Murphy. Not everyone has a guardian like that. Ethan looked at the dog, really looked. The gray around his muzzle. The wise, steady eyes. The posture of a dog who had never stopped serving. Never stopped watching. Never stopped loving. Yeah, Ethan whispered. I know. Murphy leaned into him once more. And for the first time all morning, the tension inside Ethan unwound into something warm, soft, and safe. He wasn't alone. He never had been. He never would be. Ethan stepped out of the hospital door slowly, breathing in the cool midday air. Felt different now. Lighter. Clearer. More real. Murphy walked right beside him, brushing against his leg with every step. Not pushing. Not pulling. Just keeping pace. Matching Ethan's slower rhythm with quiet understanding. The parking lot was still. Just a few cars. A breeze whispered through the bare trees. Sunlight touched the pavement in soft patches, warm enough to feel through Ethan's jacket. He paused before reaching the truck. Murphy stopped too. Ethan looked down. Murphy lifted his head gently, meeting his eyes. Those deep, steady eyes that had never once looked away when it mattered. You saved my life today, Ethan said softly. Murphy's ears lowered, calm, humble. Not proud. Not triumphant. Just present. Doing what he'd always done. Ethan knelt in front of him. Murphy stepped closer, placing his forehead gently against Ethan's chest. A slow grounding moment. Ethan felt his throat tighten. He wrapped an arm around the dog's shoulders, holding him with a tenderness that came from years of trust, years of service, partnership, and unspoken promises. You felt it before I even admitted something was wrong, he whispered. You didn't give up. Not once. Murphy let out a slow breath. Warm. Soft. Almost like a sigh of relief. Ethan pulled back and rested a hand on his muzzle. I don't know how, but you always know. Murphy blinked, slow and warm. That blink. The one he used on scared civilians. The one he used on kids during community events. The one he used on Ethan after long, exhausting shifts. A blink that said, you're safe. I'm here. I've got you. They got into the truck together. Murphy settled against the seat, this time not watching Ethan with the same intensity, just content, as if the hardest part was already behind them. As Ethan drove home at a quiet, thoughtful pace, sunlight flickered across the dashboard, warm and hopeful. You know, Ethan said, glancing at Murphy, the doctor said this was caught early because of you. Murphy's tail tapped once. That means I get to be around a long time, Ethan added. Which means you do too. Another tail tap. Stronger. Confident. When they pulled into the driveway, the house looked peaceful, like it had been holding its breath, waiting for them. Ethan stepped out and stretched slowly. Murphy hopped down beside him, shaking his fur, sending a soft ripple through his body. His posture had changed now, not alert. Not on duty, just relaxed. Home mode. Safe mode. Ethan opened the front door, and the warm smell of coffee and pine wood drifted out. Murphy trotted in ahead of him, circling once before settling onto his favorite rug, finally lying down. The first true rest he'd taken all morning. Ethan sank onto the couch. Quiet. Still. Letting everything catch up to him. Minutes passed gently. Murphy eventually pushed himself up and walked to Ethan, placing his head softly on Ethan's knee. Ethan smiled and stroked his fur. Taking care of me again, huh? Murphy didn't move. Just breathed with him. Side by side. Ethan leaned back. You know, when we were partners, I always thought I was the protector. Murphy tilted his head. Ethan continued, voice low and warm. But today you showed me something else. He paused, letting the moment breathe. You're not protecting the city anymore, he whispered. You're protecting me. Murphy inched a little closer, resting more of his weight against Ethan's leg. Gentle grounding. You're more than a service dog, Ethan said softly. You're family. Murphy closed his eyes. His breathing slowed. His tail brushed the floor with a quiet rhythm. A peaceful silence wrapped around them. Warm. Healing. Whole. Ethan let out a long, steady exhale. I'm going to take better care of myself. I promise. Murphy opened his eyes again. The soft, golden brown eyes that had watched over Ethan through storms, danger, years of service, and now through subtle warnings only loyal hearts can sense. The dog shifted, laying his head fully across Ethan's lap. Ethan laughed quietly, brushing a hand across his back. Yeah, I know. You'll make sure I do. Outside the window, light filtered through the trees, scattering across the living room like gentle blessings. A quiet reminder that some protectors never retire, not really. Their job just changes shape. Murphy had shifted from K9 officer to companion, to guardian of the heart, to silent healer. Not out of duty, but out of love. Ethan rested both hands on Murphy's back, feeling the slow rise and fall of his breathing. You and me, he whispered. Always. Murphy's tail moved once more. A soft answer. A warm promise. And in that quiet living room, with sunlight warming the old wood floors and the steady heartbeat of a dog choosing love over instinct, Ethan finally understood something deep, simple, and powerful. Some bonds aren't trained. They aren't taught. They aren't earned. They're chosen. And Murphy had chosen him every day in every way. The house held the moment gently, like a memory forming in real time, like a quiet miracle unfolding without noise. Ethan closed his eyes. Murphy stayed by him. Together. Safe. Healing. Unbreakable.